Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are with the director of JCAD, Pictures' latest film, Sprint, and we are going to interview him. Welcome back to the show, Jack.
Thank you for having me.
The question I want to ask you is, how do you plan to attract or address your audience with this film?
Well, the most obvious thing we plan to do is listen to what our audience want to see in a thriller film and what they expect from other thriller films that they've watched, and to deliver on that. We asked and then watched what our audience wanted to see in our thriller film from each particular convention in our audience researches we did as a group.
Okay. Could you go into more detail on what you asked your audience and what you added into the film from the response you got?
It will have to be broken down into sections because we did a lot of sections on particular conventions that they wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
So one I did personally is characters. And when asking about characters to people in the age range of our target audience, they all said a similar style of answer, which was that they thought the protagonist should be their favourite character in the film. And when they were talking about examples of their favourite thriller films, they were talking about their favourite characters in particular. They said they expect the protagonist to be attractive, strong, and know how to handle a gun when it comes to action scenes. Therefore, we made our protagonist in our final thriller film know how to handle a gun, which linked into his backstory because he works for the secret government, so he has had training with guns. Though when it came to the strength and looks, we decided to go against the stereotypical hero and make him an underdog who does not look like your average thriller film hero, much like Clarice from Silence of the Lambs, which someone named Ollie mentions in the target audience. He said that he liked the fact that she was an underdog and that she wasn't a typical thriller film hero.
Okay. Yeah.
People also said that the protagonist needs to be intelligent in order to figure out the antagonist's evil ways. Therefore, we took this into account and had Jason, our main protagonist, outsmart the antagonist by hiding in a bush at the end, ready to shoot him. We also portrayed his intelligence through his costume, as because he dressed very smart, it conveys him and his wife Katie have good jobs and they work hard, which we'll get to later in the interview. However, when it came to the antagonist, I again asked the audience what they thought of them and what their favourite antagonists were. People said that they remember the antagonist more than the protagonist because of their evil, despicable ways. They also said that the antagonist needs to look scary, as they need to strike fear into the audience and other characters in the scene. They need to also be intelligent in order to put up a good fight with the protagonist. Therefore, we made our protagonist on our thriller film look visually frightening with his size and his costume. We made him dress all in black and not say a word to make his presence uncomfortable for the audience to watch and make his character more of a mystery so that the audience would want to find out who's underneath the helmet. And finally, for the final character, Katie, we didn't go into too much detail on her character because she is a very small role in the opening 2 minutes. But people mainly said that they thought of a wife and a woman character as being more as the damsel in distress, leading for the hero to save her. And we kind of went with the stereotype because she relies on Jason, but also in some ways with the costume went against it because she dresses very fashionably and has a well-paid job. But overall, we went with stereotypical characters and we went with what our target audience wanted to see.
So, Jack, could you talk more about the costumes you used in the film and what your target audience expected the costume to be?
Costume and props was another thing I specifically attacked. And when it came to costume, it was a little bit harder to incorporate what the target audience expected to see from the protagonist, because they said that they thought a typical costume for a protagonist would be a suit for them to wear, which would look a bit odd in the chase scene which we are trying to portray. We thought because Jason had lost his memory, we wanted to portray this through his costume, which is why he wore a white t-shirt to convey his mind was blank, and also so the mud would show up better on his shirt to show that he's been through a tough time running through the forest. Though the target audience said that they expected a suit, so therefore we wanted to show his wealth and happiness through his flashback costume, which was a smart black suit like the target audience expected from the protagonist. But this allowed us to portray he had a good job and his life was going well with his wife. When it came to his wife Katie's costume, We dressed her very formally to match her husband Jason, as we were trying to represent them as being professional and living a good, wealthy life. Finally, the antagonist costume was much debated because of what the target audience said, which was they said that the protagonist would wear a suit or maybe a jail convict outfit because they obviously bad guys go to jail, so they thought that maybe dressing him up like Dr. Hannibal Lecter in this criminal gown, maybe like the stereotypical orange prison gown, or maybe like the blue one like Dr. Hannibal Lecter wears. Yeah. But as the story goes on, you find out that the antagonist is actually not a criminal, so we couldn't use that costume. So in the end, we came to the conclusion that they thought the antagonist would wear a suit like the protagonist, as it portrays the power of the villain and makes him look more intimidating because of his unnatural look to him, because he's wearing a helmet with a smart suit. It's also linked into the character audience research, as they said it was more menacing when the protagonist says nothing because it makes the scene more eerie. So we pulled this off when we took inspiration from the Stig from BBC's Top Gear. As he wears a helmet, says nothing, and his identity is as a secret, just like our antagonists in the film. When it came to the props we used, we needed to listen to our target audience, because they said that most of the characters would probably have a gun, which was included because of Jason's past life working with the secret government, and the same with the antagonists. Mm-hmm. And we also used kitchen appliances props to make the scene look more professional and realistic in the flashback scene, so by having just an ordinary kitchen with tea towels and cutlery and bowls, it made the scene look more authentic and made it look like a typical ordinary house.
So Jack, as you started talking about some of the myths on scene you used, could you talk more about the setting used and what the target audience want to see in a thriller film setting?
The target audience thought that a thriller film setting should be somewhere which is remote or abandoned, where there is not too much human activity. So it adds to the tension of the chase and makes it seem more like the protagonist is at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. We achieved this as our target audience as we used a very remote road and wood to film our chase scene, which made the protagonist look weak because at first he has nowhere to hide and he only has two options to run: towards the antagonist or away. Mm-hmm. And of course he has nowhere to hide, so he has to choose run away. We also asked the audience about the flashback scene and asked where they thought they might see the protagonist when he's not in the action. They said they expected them to be in a normal house surrounded by family, so we brought this into it too, which portrayed Jason as an ordinary man with his wife, whose life is going good as they both wear professional suits, they both have professional jobs, and his wife Katie is pregnant. Someone also mentioned that they found it more intense when the protagonist is abroad and in a location which they are not familiar with, as it makes this film more intense because they're in an unusual environment. We incorporated this into our thriller film, as though the location we filmed was in Little Yeldon, the setting was set in Slovakia, so it get the extra tension because Jason was not used to the environment and was vulnerable, and he is not used to his surroundings. So by the way we filmed, we made sure we didn't show too much of like signs and the language that they spoke, so that we could pull off that he was actually in Slovakia and not in the UK and Europe, so that people again would associate this with being Jason, the antagonist, being at a disadvantage to the antagonist because he has nowhere to run, and he's not used to his surroundings, so he's not used to the roads, the language they speak, so no one there can really help him.
And what about the storyline? Did you ask your audience about that?
We asked the audience about the storyline and what they expected. The audience mainly spoke about their favourite storylines from their favourite thriller films, and how they like the way that the story all comes together at the end, and the plot twists that some storylines have. They said that the storylines they liked were the ones in which someone has forgotten something, and they have to figure out what they have lost. Mm-hmm. This is why we decided to have Jason lose his memory, as he has to figure out everything alone with the audience, and the audience will be attached to him because they are finding out things at the same time that he is, which will keep them hooked throughout the film. They also said that they liked it when the character has flashbacks to his former life, as it allows the audience to see what he was like before all the carnage ensued, and how it is incorporated into the present day. So, how stuff in the flashback, what happens, why that is affecting him in the present day.
Yeah.
So in our case, it's why that flashback scene is incorporated into the chase scene, and the way we did that is that in that flashback he realizes that he has a wife, and that's the first thing he remembers, and obviously he remembers that his wife is pregnant, so he now has that motivation to find out where she is, and at the end of the flashback you see a glimpse of the mysterious biker's face in the hallway, and that's to convey that it's all just a dream and he has something to do with her disappearance, which gives the storyline much more depth, and people will want to keep following because they want to find out what the mysterious biker has to do with the disappearance and the memory loss of Jason and his wife. Therefore, because Jason had forgotten his memory, it allowed us to incorporate a flashback to his former life and realise he has found out what this guy knows about his wife. They also said that they liked films like Taken, as his wife gets captured, so it's much more makes it feel much more intense, which also allowed us to have Jason, because he was trying to take back his wife and trying to save her from danger for which the mysterious biker is creating, because this guy is very strange. He wears a helmet and boots but dresses in a smart suit and doesn't say anything, he's just chasing after him. So Jason really wants to find out what this guy has to do with the disappearance of his wife.
Did you ask the audience what camera shots they would like to see?
Yeah, we asked the audience what the camera shots they would like to see briefly. And the audience said that they expected to see lots of close-ups of faces, as people are able to see their emotions in their facial features, and because in an intense chase or fight scene, it can be used to really show the tension in the character's face from this. And the example that we got from this was the scene from Pulp Fiction when Jules Weatherfield is interrogating a guy, and there's a few close-ups of the guy who's being interrogated, and his face is very sweaty and full of panic, which shows that he is obviously the inferior one, he's in trouble, and you can really show that he's very scared. Whereas when you got the close-up of Jules, you can see that he was in control of the situation because he was very angry, and you could see that his face creasing up with how much anger he had. So we wanted to incorporate this because close-ups can really show people's emotions. So when we were talking about the thriller films with our audience, we discussed that they also like to feel involved in thriller films, as they think it makes it more intense. Therefore, because of this, we added a lot of point of view shots and some over the shoulder shots to make the audience feel that they are involved with the character. And it also makes it more intense when, say, a character is walking around a corner, makes it much more fearful and intense to watch because the character doesn't know what's coming, and neither does the audience. So we incorporated this into our thriller film when Jason runs out of the wood. There's a point of view shot of him looking left and he sees a moped, and then when he looks right, down this road, he can just see a mysterious biker standing there. And that creates the confusion in the audience because, just like Jason, they don't know why he's standing there. And it gives them a lot of questions of what is he doing. And we also found out, looking into the storyline, that the more unanswered questions and cliffhangers you have in a film, it's going to want to make our target audience keep watching. So the cliffhanger at the end of our thriller film shows Jason pulling the trigger on the mysterious biker. And because of this cliffhanger, it's going to want audiences to find out more because they want to know what's happened to Jason, why has he shot this guy when he wants to find out what's happened to his wife. Does this guy have anything to do with the disappearance of his wife? So because of the use of camera shots being point of view, the audience feel more incorporated in with Jason's life, and because of these unanswered questions, they feel more emotionally attached to the characters within the thriller film.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Jack, what did your audience have to say about the music?
So when it came to music, we asked our target audience what type of music they expected to see from a thriller film, and they all thought that music should have effect in the movie. And they gave a few examples, so they think that music should build to a thriller film scene. Yeah. And the example we got was Jaws. And when Jaws spots his victim, there's a very intense feel as the music builds up towards his attack.
Yeah.
So we needed to take inspiration from this for our thriller film, and so because we added this in, the chase scene became much more intense because it kept going. It was building. The music was building and building. Yeah. In Act 1, it's building towards the flashback scene. Then the music kind of dies down and is a bit more gentle to show that the audience are in a safe environment in Jason and Katie's home. And then as soon as you see the mysterious biker appear in the house, the intense music comes back and Jason realises and the intense music still starts to build. And then there's actually a segment of the music that sounds a bit more hopeful for Jason, and it sounds a bit more upbeat to show that maybe Jason could get out of this, which is just when he gets to the bush to hide. And then finally it ends with a very dark, deep tone music to show that something bad has happened, which is the mysterious biker getting shot. And all this incorporates to what our target audience said, because they want the music to build to the tension of a scene. So by having music, we managed to make our final chase scene much more intense for our audience to watch. So overall, each convention has allowed us to go more in detail of our audience, and the feedback that we've got back from our audience has allowed us to pick out their favourite parts from their favourite thriller films. So we decided to do this by doing audience researches. We picked out things that they most liked from their favourite thriller films and from what they expect to see from thriller films.
Yeah.
And so we've asked them questions on characters, costumes, camera shots, music, all of the convention, storyline, setting. And therefore, because we have now know what they expect from a thriller film, we added that into our thriller film to make them enjoy the film and keep watching and coming back for more.
Well, thank you very much just for joining us again, Jack.
Thank you for having me.
And so to end, we will watch a short teaser for the film.
Okay.
You alright, hun?
How was your day?
You know, same old, same old. Usual.
What was that?
I didn't hear anything. Maybe you're just tired. Look, I'll be up in a minute, okay? I'll meet you up there.